Thank you.
I don't know who turned that on. Maybe.
I don't know. I've got a little box that's showing up. Am I still online?
Yeah, we're here. I just press continue.
Continue. Okay. So, Purusha and Prakriti, that's not the teaching of Vedanta. Vedanta teaches that what we call Purusha, Paramatman, Brahman, Krishna is the self. And that Prakriti is the self too. So it is Advaita. Why do we use this language? Because our direct experience is I cognize something. There's a subject and an object. That's everybody's direct experience. It looks like two, me and stuff, but it's not two. Advaita. This becomes easy to understand if you compare it to the dream state. In the dream state, I have subject-object relationships, but it's my one mind that appears both as the subject and the object. This world is no different. So we are going to use that language because Gita is very old, but we will redefine the terms. The other two terms we're going to look at are jnanam and vijnanam, knowledge and wisdom, or knowledge and direct experience. Jnanam just means knowledge. V is a prefix, it's a superlative. So what is beyond just knowing stuff is direct experience. And the moment of realization happens when our direct experience and our understanding come together. When they come together. So we're going to talk about that. So we did verses 1 and 2 last week. Let's move on now to verse 3. Will you help us out, please, Deepa?
Sure. Manusyanam sahasneshu kaschityati siddhaye yatadamapi siddhanam kaschinmam veti tattvataha. Among thousands of men, one perchance strives for perfection. Even among those successful strivers, only one perchance knows me in essence.
So, self-realization is rare. Why? Because out of 1,000 people, only one even strives for it. Now, Krishna has already said previously, easy to perform. I tell you, self-realization is not difficult. You don't need a high IQ. You don't need to know Sanskrit. You don't need to be brilliant or anything. You don't need to be one caste as opposed to another, or Indian as opposed to European. It's easy to perform, but it's very rare. Why? Because out of 1,000 people, only one even bothers to strive for it. It's very rare because nobody wants it. And even if you want it, our yoga can take lifetimes. Why? because I want the world more. Where your treasure is, there's where your heart is. What do you think is of greatest value? Is it money? Is it approval? Is it sex? Whatever it is, whatever you place above God, that's your real God. It's what you worship. So our ignorance tells us, if I give up the world and go for God, I'm not going to have any fun. But let me give you a very real life worldly example. If you are an alcoholic, many of them reach the place where they think, if you had my problems, you'd drink too.
Mm-hmm.
Not realizing that the miserable mind state is caused by the drinking. And then finally, in the end, my only friend, my only solace, my only respite, my only relief is the bottle. So that's become their God. They have a God. It's just in a bottle. It's just not a very good God. Doesn't do the trick. So that's what happens to you and me. Oh, yes, I believe in God. Oh, yes, I do puja. Oh, yes, I'm a religious person once a week on holidays. The rest of the time, drugs, sex, and rock and roll. Whatever it is that pulls our minds. And some of us, what pulls our minds is somehow dealing with the negativity. How bad it is at the office. How terrible my childhood was. Terrible nature of politics. We have all sorts of ways where we focus our mind on things other than God. So out of 1,000, only one strives for liberation. And of those, few are subtle enough to really deeply grasp God is the most beloved. People ask me, because I've been a great vulgar man, a hedonist in this life. Why did you give this up? Why did you become a sadhu? And I tell them, I'm still a hedonist. The world just got too little. I wanted something bigger. I wanted something fuller. I wanted something permanent. But it takes us a long time to figure that out. Any thoughts on this? Never think I'm not smart enough, or I don't have the right place or opportunity or anything. It's all a matter of where is my heart? What is my heart's desire? We need to become a mumukshu, to have the burning desire for liberation. That's the power that drives our sadhana. All right, next verse.
भूमिरापो नलो वायु खं मनो बुद्धिरेव च अहंकार इति यं मे भिन्ना प्रकृतिरष्टधा. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intellect, egoism. These are my eightfold Prakriti.
So here Krishna is describing our equipment. He calls it our eightfold nature, Prakriti, the things of what we in the beginning called the Anatman, the not self. We're going to work with that. So why do we start with these, what we call the tanmatras? Earth, air, fire, water, and akash is space. I think that's a much better translation than ether. Space. Akash is usually space or sky.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I struggled with this verse for a long time because Earth isn't an element. Helium is an element. Hydrogen's an element. Carbon is an element, not earth or fire. That's just because the ancients didn't understand physics and chemistry. And then I learned, no, it's subtler than that. We have to understand that it has to do with the yoga notion of perception itself. Now, yoga thunders in Chandogya Upanishad. It's one of my favorite sayings. Sarvam kalvidam brahma. Sarvam idam. All this. That's shop talk. It means the phenomenal world. Kalu, verily, is Brahman. It's all consciousness. The phenomenal world is all consciousness. What I see is people, places, things, and conditions. We call it nama rupa, name and form. And it appears in consciousness like the images in a mirror. Or like the dream. So what's this have to do with the tanmatras? Earth is something's smellability. Think of an agrarian culture. I don't know if any of you ever been out in farmland like you two. When you go saving turkeys, do you ever go up to farms where they have crops planted?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can smell the tilled earth. It's a wonderful, wonderful fragrance. You see. So the ancients would associate earth with smellability. Air. If you go outside on a windy afternoon like today, you can feel the air on your skin. So air is touchability. Fire. At night, when everything is dark and you light a fire, what happens? I can see it. So fire is something's seeability. Mm-hmm. Earth, air, fire, water, tasteability. Space, sound occurs in space. Why do we say that these tanmatras, these 5 elements connected with the senses, are about what happens in the physical plane? Mm-hmm. The way to understand it is this. So we now have 4 of us sitting in my living room, those of you out in Zoomland. So in the middle of my living room is a coffee table. A coffee table is made of what?
Wood.
What's wood made of?
Trees.
Carbon. Carbon.
Okay.
Basic element in wood is carbon. Cellulose, which is basically carbon. There's a lid on top of the candy jar. What's the lid made of?
some kind of metal.
Silver?
Yeah, it's silver plate, so there's probably copper or something underneath there. So, but we'll say silver. What's the elemental sign for silver? Anybody know?
AG? AG, right? Silver.
I think so, yeah. So, silver, that's what we would call an element. Carbon, that's what we would call an element, etc. Now, what if we were dreaming right now? And you had a dream that you were in my living room. And there was the coffee table with the candy jar with the silver lid on it. What would the coffee table and the lid of the candy jar be made of in the dream? Would it be wood and silver, carbon and silver?
It's dream material, it's thought, it's consciousness, right?
Yes, but that consciousness forms itself into seeability, tasteability, touchability, smellability, hearability. And they combine in unique ways. So, for example, if you look at the lid of the candy jar, it's bright and silver and it's reflective. You look at the table doesn't have the same combination of those 5 properties. You see that? So the ancients would say that this phenomenal world is made up of a combination of seeability, tasteability, touchability, smellability, hearability. Now, if we were sharks have those little pits on the side of their snout. Have you ever seen that?
Mm-hmm.
Where they're able to sense the electromagnetism in living creatures. So you take a hammerhead shark and it'll cruise along the sandy bottom, and it can tell when there's a crab buried in the sand. Doesn't see, hear, taste, touch, or smell it. It feels its electromagnetism. Other than the 5 senses with other beings. Goes, digs it up and eats it. But we humans, we have 5. So you've got the sense organs, sense perception, and the sense objects are nothing but mind appearing as seeability, tasteability, touchability, hearability, smellability, etc. So everything in this world and my physical body and its sense perceptions are nothing but the tanmatras. Now, what the ancients would say in both Vivekachudamani and Atmabodha, Shankara goes into greater detail with this. It's called the Pancha Karanam, the 5-fold division and subsequent recombination. Those of you who've studied Vivekachudamani or Atmabodha, there's a funny little chart that Swamiji makes. Looks like little Pac-Man. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah.
Don't even bother with that. It's I find it confusing more than illuminating. Understand that the dream world and the waking state world have a similarity and they have a difference. Just like water and ice have a similarity and a difference. What's the difference between water and ice?
Ice is frozen water.
What does frozen mean?
Solid and liquid.
physics are there?
Solid.
So lower vibration. The molecules aren't moving as fast.
Hmm.
That's what's happening, isn't it?
Mhm, mhm.
You speed up the motion of the molecules, they spread out, and a solid turns to a liquid. What happens if you make a move even faster? You get steam. Subtle, gross. That's the difference between the dream state and the waking state. The waking state, this physical reality, is still mind. It's just a grossified form of mind. Imagination and dream is subtler. It's the only difference. It's a vibratory difference. That's all it is.
Jim, is that where intuition also is around?
Let's put that question on the shelf for now,
Okay.
because intuition would be a subtler form of mind. But we'll get to that. That's a little bit different for now. Right now, we're talking about what is this physical universe and what is our equipment. That's what the scripture's talking about. So we had the 5 elements which make up the physical body. Then he says we have manas, mind. What is the mind? Now, mind as an English word is an arbitrary translation of the Sanskrit manas. In yoga scriptures, in Vedanta, we say the world is the mind and the mind is the world. Mind is where we create the values, the distinctions, the judgments about people, places, things, and conditions. I kind of use a shorthand and I say it's where feelings happen. But it's a little more nuanced than that. It's where our judgments and things like that, largely based on memory. Largely based on memory. Then we have intellect. Did he use buddhi in the scripture? I think he did.
He did.
Yeah. Buddhi means subtle intellect or the intellect. That's where thought happens. But it's also where we determine the suchness of something. Let me see if I can give you my standard example. So you're out at Ocean Beach and you're looking out at the horizon and you have a direct sense perception. There's something white. The intellect then comes in to determine what is it? Is it a buoy? Is it a sailboat? Is it a container ship? It's hard to tell. It's out there in the distance. Intellect. Then you finally figure it out. It's a sailboat. Then your mind comes in. Oh, I love sailing. I can remember going sailing in LA Harbor with my dad. We used to sail from LA Harbor to Catalina for the weekend in the summer. It was so much fun just being out there on the waves. And oh, golly, I love to sail. Oh, maybe I'll take so-and-so out sailing. We'll rent a boat and, that's what your mind does, which then creates your experience of the world. You see person walking down the street. Intellect goes, you have direct perception. Intellect goes, young man or young woman. Mind goes, they're hot. You see how that works? Direct sense perception, determine that's sense perception directly. Some combination of the tanmatras. Then the intellect determines the suchness of it. What is it? Then mind comes in with all its evaluation. And that's what happens in the work. Now, so there's the five, mind, intellect, and now the eighth, ahankara. Here Swamiji's translated it as ego. Ego is basically a psychological term. It's a Latin term. It says, I am. It's pretty good. But the word in Sanskrit is much subtler. Ahankara. Kara comes from the root kri, which means to make or to do. What are some of the words that come from that root? Can anybody name some?
Karma,
Karma, action. What's another one?
karta, the doer.
Doership, karta, good.
What's the root you asked about, Jim?
Kri,
Kriya.
kriya, like a cleansing or an action in that sense. Karana, anybody know what that is? Cause. So what's aham mean?
I, me.
It's first person pronoun. That's all it is. So ahankara is a particular attitude, function, mode of activity where it actually is in what we call the vijnanamaya kosha, subtlest part of the intellect, where it identifies the self with the not self and coordinates all the sense perceptions, feelings, and thoughts. So it appears like it's happening to one person.
Huh.
So, Deepa, what did you do this afternoon?
I visited a friend.
You visited a friend. And then did you come home and have dinner or something?
Lunch.
Lunch, okay. And then you came here to help with Gita, right?
Yes.
It's the same person who had sense perception, intellect, mind, etc., with the visit with your friend, that then experienced the lunch, that now is here with Gita. See, it all happened to you, an individual. See, Sethu and Vishwa and I had very different experiences. So that's the ahankara or ahankriti that's going on in the subtlest part of the intellect. Now, it's not a bad thing. You couldn't function in the world without it. We have motorcycles.
That's a lot of ahankara right there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fun. So, this ahankara coordinates all the activity. But the thing what gets us in trouble is when I think I am the ahankara. Now, this ahankara is far more an event than a solid thing. I mean, like your nose is your nose. It's just there and it's always a nose. But your ahankara is not the same. The ahankara is always changing. That's like when someone asks you a question, are you really happy? It's stupid. I'm happy and my nose itches and I'm thinking about dinner and what am I going to do at work tomorrow? I mean, it's constantly moving. It's constantly changing all the time. You see, it's never, ever solid. And the classic image we have for it is a flame. In a windless room, a flame looks like a solid thing. But is a flame a solid thing? No. The flame is the constant oxidization of gases, of the fuel. It's an event. It's an event. But ahankara, like the frame, has the appearance of continuity, the appearance of being a solid thing. Because of spiritual ignorance, in that subtle intellect, rather than thinking of the ahankara as an object of awareness, I think it's me. Notice, where does Krishna put ahankara? In Prakriti or Purusha? What did the verse say? You had it. Say it again. Prakriti. Prakriti. Later on, we'll use words like the upadis, the equipment. So to sum, 5 tanmatras, the phenomenal world, mind, intellect, and egoism. These comprise the material. I like to use that because it doesn't call any of this matter. Prakriti means matter, but it's not matter. Still all consciousness appearing as that stuff. Best term I've ever seen is Sa Guna Brahman. Sa means with. Guna means qualities. Brahman, it's Brahman with qualities. This Sa Guna Brahman, this Prakriti, is always an object of cognition. It's always stuff that is knowable. I know the phenomenal world that I perceive. I know my feelings. I know my thoughts. And I know the rise and fall of egoism. Can't be me. I'm the one who's knowing it. Any questions about this?
So, Jim,
Yes.
the duration of ego is the lifetime of a person.
Say it again.
You said the ego is an event, right?
Yes.
More than
Then a thing.
a thing. So then the duration of the event is the life of a person.
Kind of yes and kind of no. So, for example, have you ever had an incarnation memory?
Dream.
Have you ever remembered a prior incarnation? Some people have. Now, the lack of memory does not mean that ego wasn't functioning. So what is today? The 22nd of May, correct?
Mm-hmm.
What were you doing on the 22nd of May 5 years ago? But I tell you, ahankara was functioning. You see. So just because you don't remember it doesn't mean ego wasn't there.
I want to clarify something, Jim.
Sure.
The reason we read this verse is it to remind us that this world comes about like a dream. And in the dream state, there is no carbon wood table. It's all perceived because of fire, Agni, or
Yeah.
So is the point to remind us that these are all just perceptions? Is the point to remind us that none of it's really here and they're just events, or I'm perceiving events?
Well, that's part of it, but the deeper part of it is most of us run around thinking, I am my body. How are you doing? Oh, I'm feeling well. I feel so good. I lost 4 pounds this week. Don't we say that?
If you lose 4 pounds.
Or you say you gained 4 pounds this week.
Sounds more like it.
But the point is, what are you talking about? I or my body. How are you doing today? Oh, I'm so depressed.
Yep.
You see, I feel like I am my depression. Or you get a bad review at work. They just don't understand me, how much I contribute. Isn't that where our mind goes? So I'm identified with that doership. You see. So what he's describing is the not self, as Shankara would call it. So remember when we say Vivekachudamani, and you talk about what is the not self, who is the real self, what's the process of discrimination between the two. Page after page after page of what is the not self. So when he goes into Prakriti, that's his terminology for what Shankara calls the not self. Any other questions?
When I dream of a table, you said that's when my dream of the table in my dream is made up of consciousness material or dream material. So you said that consciousness seems to fork into two. Is that kind of what's happening with Purusha and Prakriti? There seems
Exactly.
okay.
Exactly. Any other questions? Now, this is fundamental to understanding Vedanta. All right, next verse. How are we doing on time? We're fine.
Apareyamitastvanyam prakritim vidhi me param jiva bhutam mahabaho yayedam dharyate jagat. This is the lower Prakriti, different from it. Know thou, O mighty armed, my higher Prakriti, the very life element by which this world is upheld.
So here we have where Gita differs from Sankhya philosophy. So the word Prakriti not only means matter, it actually means nature. And when we say the word nature has two meanings. I'm going to go up to Muir Woods and enjoy the beauty of nature, the natural world. Or you can say, Jim told another stupid joke. Don't worry, that's just his nature. You see, we have, so the nature can mean the essence of something, the character of something, as well as the stuff. You see, the word nature has those two meanings. The word Prakriti also has the same two meanings. So now Krishna is going to say, okay, we've talked about lower Prakriti. What we can call Saguna Brahman. This verse he says, now I'm going to tell you about my higher nature, not stuff, but the essence of it, what it is, what we could also call Nirduna Brahman. Nis, what's nis mean?
Not
Without.
Without. Here, because of the Sunday, it turns to an R. Guna, what's guna? Qualities. Brahman. Brahman without qualities. So this Krishna is calling the higher Prakriti. What does he mean? It's the same as Paramatman, the supreme self, which is never perceived as an object. It's the eternal subject. Always experienced not as ahankara, but just aham, I. So if it's lower Prakriti, it has a beginning and an end. If it occurs in time and space, if it's in the waking dream or deep sleep state exclusively, if it's confined to the past, present, or the future. Most importantly, if it can be known as an object of awareness. Lower Prakriti. Anatma. I take that back. We're not going to call it Anatma because that gets, we're not going to use that term. Saguna Brahman. Brahman with qualities. Well, that's everything in the world, Jim. That's right. How do you know everything in the world? Well, I just know it. Who knows it? Me. Nirguna Brahman. Higher Prakriti. Any questions? Next verse.
एतद्योनीनि भूतानि सर्वाणीत्युपधारय अहं कृत्स्नस्य जगतः प्रभव प्रलयस्तथा. Know that these two prakritis are the womb of all beings. So I am the source and dissolution of the whole universe.
Vishwa, behind you on the objects that are on the chest in the window, you'll see a white marble Shivalingam. Would you grab it for me, please?
Sure.
Can you bring it over here without falling?
Yes.
So this is, can you all see the Shivalingam? This is one of the earliest forms of the god Shiva. So it's a penis and a vagina. That's literally what it is, you see. And this imagery is echoed in this verse of Gita. So the lingam, the penis image, symbolizes pure consciousness, Lord Shiva. The vagina, the yoni, the womb, symbolizes this lower Prakriti. So we always say Shiva is always wedded to his Shakti. That's the eternal coupling. The cosmic sex act, drawing on our understanding of nature, that when a man and a woman do the mufti-pufti, out of that comes new life. So this is one of the oldest symbols. Later on, we have Shiva, and he's in a human form, and he's got the third eye and the snakes and all that kind of stuff. This is much older. And what it symbolizes is consciousness ever embedded in the world of nature, Prakriti, Purusha, Prakriti, higher Prakriti, lower Prakriti. And from that comes everything. All things and beings. Can I ask you to put it back,
Sure.
please?
Thanks, Jim.
Are nothing but this wedding of the higher Prakriti with the lower Prakriti. This is the womb of all creation. So now we're going to discuss what Gita in other places will call a sparsha yoga. The root here is prichati, which means to touch. So asparsha means untouched. Yoga means to join. So Swamiji, poet that he was, used to call it the touch of the untouched. How is it that there is a relationless relationship between the life principle, our Shiva Lingam, and Prakriti, the stuff out of which the whole world is made, the yoni, Prakriti. So in fact, what does it mean? I am the knower of the body. I am the knower of the feelings. I am the knower of the thoughts. I am the knower of the rise and the fall of ahankara. The body cannot act, the mind cannot feel, the intellect cannot think, the agent cannot act without Brahman contact. Yet, Brahman is never touched by it. So the practice that's implied as you go through your day, your body acts, your mind feels, your intellect thinks, your ego does its number, but try to stop periodically and check out yourself. Are you not still that empty, witnessing consciousness? Are you ever dirtied or sullied or altered or diminished or increased by any of the activities? Is Purusha ever touched by Prakriti? Is the lower Prakriti ever touching really the higher Prakriti? Now, in our modern world, the clearest example I can find of this is electricity through appliances. So, we have a light bulb, we have a ceiling fan, and we have a stereo. Why is the light bulb on and the ceiling fan off? What's going on?
Switch is off.
And what does that mean?
Can't pass all the way through
What's not passing through the fan?
The electricity.
Yes.
Before.
Yes. The light bulb here is on. If I turn the switch,
Mhm.
what did I do? What does the switch do?
Turns off the current.
Turns off the current. Yes. So electricity is the metaphor here for Brahman, for consciousness. Electricity is not light, it's not motion, and it's not sound. But the bulb cannot shine, the fan cannot move, the stereo cannot sing without electricity contact. Isn't that so? Without that, they're jada, inert. So also, the self is not physical activity or sense perception. The self is not feelings. The self is not thought. The self is not egoism. But the body, mind, intellect, and ego cannot function without this Brahman contact. Yet, the self is never touched by it. Don't believe me. Throughout your day, stop for a moment, introvert your attention, notice the noticer, and see if any of the things that have happened to you. Now, if you can know it, if you can see it, if you can cognize it, it isn't you. It's lower prakriti. Any thoughts on this? Any questions? So Krishna, remember here we've talked about the 3 levels that Gita teaches on. Here Krishna is going to talk a lot about how I am stuff. Here he's talking about you, the self in you, the life principle in you, the consciousness in you, the Atman itself. Next verse.
Matta parataram nanya atkinchadasti dhananjaya Mayi sarvamidam protam sutre manigana iva.
Oh, I love this verse. It's one of my favorites.
There is nothing whatsoever higher than me, O Dhananjaya. All this is strung in me as clusters of gems on a string.
Yes, Mani Sutre, like gems, money, on sutre, a suture, a thread. See? So you got to think of, like my mother had a beautiful pearl necklace. These beautiful pearls on a thread. So Krishna is saying that all the things and beings, he is what strings them all together. He's the life principle in everything. So the conscious being in you and in you and in you and all you zoomies out there in Zoomland and in me and the dogs and the frogs and the worms and the germs. They're all just different gems. Some of us are great big rubies. Some of them are just little tiny itty bitty things. But the life principle, upon which they're all threaded is Krishna. All that differs is the Namarupa, the name and form, the outer stuff. So here's another exercise. As you're out there in the world, look people in the eye. And out of those eyes, a conscious being is peering. They're not the body. They're not their particular feelings at the moment. They're not their ideas. Brilliant, meaning they agree with me, or stupid, they don't agree with me. There's a conscious being looking out of those eyes. Same with the doggies, same with the turkeys. That is Krishna. That's yourself. All of this is sprung on me like gems on a thread or a string. Beautiful, beautiful imagery. Any thoughts on this?
Also with the body of water or nature?
Absolutely. Anything that has existence, the very sat, the very existence of it is Krishna, is consciousness. Yes. What's the difference between a rock, a tree, and you and me? Just the equipment. A rock is pretty tamasic. Doesn't have any rajas, or its rajas is very slow. It's worn down by the elements. And it has no sattva. It has no luminosity of intellect at all. Just has tamas. A tree has a little more. A tree is sentient. It not only has sat, existence, but it has some rajas. It can grow, sap, it circulates. And scientists are now beginning to understand that actually they're sentient and they communicate. They communicate through chemicals. And then what we would call living beings, they have a little more rajas and sattva in their nature. That's all it is. It's a different combination of the Buddhas. Does that make it a little clearer, Susili?
Yes, thank you, Jim.
All right, next verse.
The next two verses are together.
All right.
Rasohamapsu kaunteya prabhasmi shashi suryayo pranava sarva vedeshu shabdakhe paurusham nrishu punyo gandha prithivyam cha tejaschami vibhavaso jivanam sarva bhuteshu tapaschasmi tapasvishu. I am the sapidity in water, O son of Kunti. I am the light in the moon and the sun. I am the syllable Om in the Vedas, sound in ether, and virility in men. I am the sweet fragrance in earth, and the brilliance in fire, the life in all beings, and I am austerity in the austere.
So, at the last verse, when Krishna explained all this, there was a big question mark on Arjuna's forehead. And Krishna says, he's not getting it. He's not getting it. Let me try using some examples about how I'm the essence of everything. I am what makes it what it is. So he's the sapidity, the wetness of water. What was the next one? There's a whole list.
Yes. Sapidity in the water, O son of Kunti. I'm the light in the moon and the sun.
So what is it that makes the moon and the sun what they are? They shine. He's the essence of it, the light. The virility in people. Is that the next one?
I am the syllable Om in all the Vedas.
Ah, so what is the essence of all the Vedas? All the Vedas point towards ultimate reality. None of them. Oh. The Mandukya Upanishad, it says, all this is Om. All that is beyond this is Om. So it's the sound syllable we use to point to the ultimate reality. Next idea.
Sound and ether.
Yes. So as we went through each one of these elements, here by just pointing out sound and ether, he also means the smell in the earth, the taste in the water, the light, the visibility in the fire, etc. So he means the essence of each of these. What's the core? What's the essence of it? Next one.
And
Next
the
idea.
virility in men.
Yes. What makes men what they are? Men all think with their, whatever you want to call it.
Linga.
Ooh,
True.
what makes them what they are. But we'll use jokes aside. Jokes aside. It's what makes people act with determination and stuff like that. Next image.
I am the sweet fragrance in earth.
Yes. So if you're out there again in the beauty of nature and you smell the clean earth, the essence of it is again, the essence of everything is Krishna. And the last one.
And the brilliance in fire, the
The-
life in all being.
Yes, the brilliance and fire, the life in all beings.
And
So-
I am austerity in the austere.
For those who do tapas, those who, what makes a tapaswan what they are, it is that they have austerity. So whatever we do on our yoga path, that too is Krishna. Is that the end of it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so summing up, nothing is left out of Krishna. Everything is Krishna. What about evil? That's just a human judgment. If it is, it's Krishna. Now, we've played with this idea before in the second chapter. Since you've got it here, would you go back to chapter 2 and read verse 16 for us?
16, 1-6,
1:6 in chapter 2.
coming up.
Very important verse. We're doing on time, but fun. I need to memorize this verse at some point.
Nasato vidyate bhavo, na bhavo vidyate satah, ubhayorapi drishtonta, astavanyos tattvadarshibhi. The unreal has no being. There is no non-being of the real. The truth about both these has been seen by the knowers of the truth, or the seers of the essence.
So here, Vyasa, our poet, plays with these two terms, sat and bhava. So if it doesn't have existence, sat, it doesn't have being, bhava. Only being, bhava, has existence. What do we mean by something that doesn't exist? The child of a barren woman, the horns of a hare. Those are just imagination. They're not real. So what Krishna has said in that verse, only bhava, being, has any sat existence. In our normal parlance, we separate the world into things and beings. The dog is a being, Deepa is a being, the table's a thing, the chair is a thing. Krishna doesn't do that. Krishna says everything that is sat has being, bhava. There is no non-being for what is. What do we mean by that? In the end, it's all consciousness. It's all bhava, being. Sarvam kalvidam brahma. All this is verily Brahman. What is Brahman? Prajnanam Brahma. Brahman is consciousness. But because of the Lord's Maya Shakti, power of illusion, we do not know that it's all Brahman. You experience mini Maya at night. Mini Maya, cute. Mini Maya is a dream. When you are dreaming, for most of us, if it's not what we call a lucid dream, you do not know that you are dreaming. When you're dreaming, it sure seems real, doesn't it?
Mhm.
But when you wake up, you know it was imagination. That's mini Maya. So part of the nature of the Lord's Maya Shakti is in this world of name and form. We do not know that it's all Brahman. Instead, I think I am my body and the world is out there. And I love this person and they piss me off. That makes me happy. And that makes me unhappy. I do not know. I'm not woke. So this is the same idea that Krishna is bringing to our attention. And again, it involves a practice. Now, I was talking with someone this week, and they have had a big breakthrough, and they're beginning to see, oh, everything out there is myself. That's the way this person described it. So when this person is being egocentric and narcissistic, well, I do that too. Well, when this person is trying to feel important, well, I do that too. When this person, and so what he's seeing is that all our minds are the same. All our ego strategies are the same. This is an important breakthrough because it's the major breakthrough for compassion. People tell me frequently, oh, Jim, do you read our minds?
Do you?
In a way, yes. Do you know how? Because I know my mind. And your mind is just like my mind.
Oh
As we move through the world, assume we are more alike than different. But that's not what Krishna is talking about here. Take it up to the next level. Not that our minds are all the same. We're sharing the same funny farm dream. But what you are and what this is God. There's an invocation in the Christian tradition. The Lord is in his holy temple. Let all keep silence. It's not a building. It's this world. And he didn't just come because it's Sunday. It's an acknowledgement of the truth of what is. It's all God. All right, we'll stop here tonight. What verse are we on for next week?
You have to start with 10.
With 10. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om. Om Tat Sat. Now, I have a request to make. Since we've changed the order of class, because we have live peeps here now, and we start with meditation, those of you who are Zoomies, please log on before 6:30, because Deepa is here and she's hosting. So if you come in late, first of all, it goes bleep, and then she has to come out of meditation to host and move you into the class. So out of respect for her and the rest of the people, please come early, don't come late. All right, thank you all. And
Thank you,
Deepa.
Jim. Thank you, Deepa.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Bye.